She tweeted about a dream, in terrifying detail. 3 days later, that exact nightmare became her reality. Same location. Same injuries. Same ending. She had always been a vivid dreamer, the kind who remembered every shadow, every sound, every impossible moment. Her social media followers knew this about her. In fact, a small portion followed her because of it. She would share these dreams online, usually as long text posts or Twitter threads, some bordering on surreal horror. Most were dismissed as artistic or cryptic. But one dream was different. On a quiet Monday night, she posted what would become her last entry. The post read like a short horror story. I'm in a room with red velvet curtains. There's a strange humming like an old fridge or a broken light. I'm barefoot. The floor is cold. I walk to the window but it's bricked over. Suddenly, I feel something metallic press against my back. I don't turn around. I just know, this is where I die. At first, no one took it seriously. A few replied with memes. Others commented on how cinematic it sounded. New short film idea? One follower wrote. Some laughed. But 1 or 2 replies asked if she was okay, sensing something off in the tone. It didn't read like fiction. It read like prophecy. She had a pattern: dream, post, move on. But this time she didn't move on. She didn't post again after that. No replies. No activity. Nothing. Behind the scenes, friends tried texting her. One messaged, "That last dream you posted kind of freaked me out. You good?" No response. Then silence stretched for 2 days. Her friends reported her missing on the 3rd day. When police entered her apartment, everything changed. They found her in the living room, lifeless, face down, barefoot, on the cold tile floor. Red velvet curtains hung around the room's window. The walls were a pale beige, but the curtains stood out like bloodstains. Most disturbing of all, the window had been sealed. Not bricked in reality, just covered by heavy blackout boards from the inside. No light entered. No one outside could see in. There was no sign of a struggle. No broken windows, no forced locks. It was as if she had just stopped moving. A single object lay near her body, a small piece of steel pipe. Investigators assumed blunt force trauma but couldn't immediately confirm. There was no blood splatter, just one head injury delivered cleanly and quietly. The humming she mentioned? Still there. An old refrigerator in the corner buzzed like a wasp trapped in glass. The sound was faint but unnerving, identical to her post. Detectives initially thought it might be a disturbing coincidence. But when a young junior officer found her dream post and read it aloud at the station, the room went cold. Every detail. Mesh. Word spread fast online. Her post went viral, reshared thousands of times. People debated, was it a psychic vision? A warning from the universe? Or something darker? A killer who saw her post and used it as a script? That theory didn't sit well with everyone, but it began to gain traction. Internet sleuths dug into her digital footprint. A Reddit thread exploded overnight with theories ranging from stalkers to occult explanations. Some believed she was targeted because of the dream. Others suggested she had written her fate into existence. But one Redditor pointed out something chilling. She had posted in a private dream interpretation forum weeks earlier, describing a similar scene. Same curtains, same feeling of dread. And even more haunting, someone had replied anonymously saying, "Sometimes dreams are rehearsals. Pay attention to the ones that feel too real." That comment had gone unnoticed at the time. But now, under the microscope, it took on a new weight. Who had written that? And how did they know? In the days that followed, her friends recalled odd moments. She had confided to one friend that she felt like someone was watching her online. That she'd received DMs from accounts that vanished after sending cryptic messages, most of them referencing her dreams. She thought it was trolling. Maybe a creepy fan. But what if it was something more calculated? Detectives began to catalog every detail from the post. They treated it like a witness statement. The room. The humming. The bricked window. The metal. Her position on the floor. Every single thing was exactly as described. Too exact. People don't describe the moment of their own death. And if they do, it's not supposed to come true. No one could explain how her dream had been carried out so precisely unless someone had read it and acted on it. But who? And why? The investigation shifted its tone, from eerie coincidence to digital premeditation. Her dream post had become a blueprint. The killer hadn't just taken her life. They had staged the moment down to the smallest sensory detail. As if to say, you saw it coming. And no one believed you. That realization, that someone might have used her own words to end her life, was more than horrifying. It was intimate. psychological, cult. And it was just the beginning. The body was discovered late in the afternoon, after two friends filed a missing person report and a welfare check was authorized. The apartment was locked from the inside. No broken windows, no signs of forced entry. Yet, what officers found inside would leave even the most seasoned detectives silent. She was lying face down on the floor, barefoot, her arms limp beside her. Her hair, still damp from a recent shower, stuck to her neck and cheeks. A single, small pool of blood had formed beneath her temple. There was no chaos, no sign of a fight, no toppled furniture, no signs of panic. Everything was eerily still, as if time itself had frozen. The only sound in the apartment was the quiet hum of an aging refrigerator, vibrating faintly in the kitchen. That subtle detail might have gone unnoticed if not for what came next. Red velvet curtains hung over the window, heavy, theatrical, out of place in an otherwise minimalistic apartment. The detectives found it strange. When one of them pulled the curtain back, they were stunned to find the window had been completely sealed off from inside with wooden panels, painted the same color as the walls. No light could penetrate through. There was no view, only darkness. But it was when a detective returned to the precinct and opened her last social media post that the shock truly set in. Every single detail she had described in her dream matched the crime scene exactly. A cold floor, bare feet, the red curtains, the humming, a sealed-off window, a metallic sensation behind her back. It was as if someone had printed out the post and used it as a checklist. The object found near her body, a short steel pipe clean with no fingerprints, matched the vague cold metal she had described. Medical examiners later confirmed she had died from a single, precise blow to the side of the head. No defensive wounds. She likely never saw it coming. It had been swift, silent, and efficient. The nature of the crime was unsettling not just for its brutality, but for its precision. It wasn't a burglary gone wrong. Nothing had been stolen. Her phone was still on the nightstand, her laptop untouched. No drawers were opened. Whoever had done this had entered quietly, done what they came to do, and left with no trace. It didn't feel like a crime of passion or impulse. It felt rehearsed. When photos of the crime scene leaked online, specifically the detail about the red velvet curtains and sealed window, social media erupted. Her last dream post was shared thousands of times, with captions ranging from conspiracy theories to terrified awe. Was this a supernatural warning? A psychic vision? Or had someone taken her dream and turned it into a death scene? Public pressure mounted. The police began treating her final online post as potential pre-crime evidence. If the killer had used it to stage her death, then that post wasn't just a warning, it was a trap. Investigators dug deeper. Her recent interactions were combed through. Texts, DMs, emails, comment threads, even deleted drafts. Several anonymous accounts had interacted with her shortly before she died. One in particular caught attention. It had responded to her dream post with a now-deleted comment. "Funny how dreams sometimes come true, huh?" The comment vanished minutes later, but a user had screenshotted it before it disappeared. Meanwhile, the autopsy revealed no drugs or alcohol in her system. She hadn't been sedated. The blow to the head had been delivered while she was standing, or possibly kneeling, and facing away. The trajectory confirmed she didn't see her killer. There were no bruises or binding marks, ruling out any struggle or restraint. She had been calm, possibly unaware, maybe even asleep minutes before. What unsettled investigators the most was the killer's restraint. They didn't linger. They didn't mutilate or taunt. They simply created a perfect replica of her dream and vanished. Forensics turned up nothing. No prints. No footprints. No fibers. No DNA. The only trace of anyone was her own. The press dubbed it the dream crime. As the public obsession with the case grew, theories multiplied. Some believed it was a stalker who had been planning this for months, someone who followed her dream posts and waited for the right one. Others believed it was someone close to her, someone who knew the layout of her apartment, knew how to slip in and out unnoticed, knew about the curtains, which had been hung only a week before. But the most disturbing theory was the one no one wanted to admit, that the killer had been watching her online, waiting for her to write the story of her own death, and when she did, they simply stepped in and made it happen. The emotional weight of the scene began to bear down on everyone involved in the case. Detectives couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. That someone was still out there, monitoring every move, maybe even enjoying the chaos. A few days after the murder, her account was mysteriously deactivated. It wasn't the police. It wasn't the family. It just vanished. No explanation. No warning. as if someone had erased her final voice, and with it, the only clue that might have led to the truth. The investigation turned digital. With no physical evidence at the crime scene, detectives had only one viable path: her online world. They began tracing her final days through messages, comments, private threads, and anything she may have interacted with in the days leading up to her death. What they found wasn't just activity, it was a descent into paranoia. Her DMs were cluttered with vague messages from accounts that had since been deleted. Some were benign, compliments on her writing, requests to collaborate. But others were sinister, asking questions that mirrored the content of her dreams. "What's behind the curtain this time?" one read. Another said, "Do you feel it watching you too?" These weren't random trolls. They were deliberate, timed closely with each dream post. Someone had been studying her, slowly invading the space between reality and her subconscious. The tech unit traced several of the anonymous messages to disposable accounts created through VPNs, most using encrypted browsers and masked IPs. Whoever was behind them knew what they were doing. But one mistake stood out. A burner email used to create one of the accounts had been linked to a dark web forum, a place known for anonymous storytelling, but also for disturbing content sharing and obsessive behavior. Investigators found threads about her there. Not just reposts of her dreams but analysis. Users dissected her posts like riddles, comparing timestamps, theorizing hidden meanings, even discussing her apartment layout based on background glimpses and photos she'd uploaded. One thread chilled detectives the most. It was titled "The Oracle's Countdown," and it wasn't authored by her. The user behind it posted cryptic messages about transforming fiction into legacy, claiming dreams could be shaped into final chapters. One entry, dated the night before her murder, simply read, "Tomorrow the veil drops. Red curtains. One strike." Just like she saw it. They had found the killer's voice. Now it was a race. The account went inactive immediately after that post. No more messages. No login attempts. Just silence. The username, _Watcher13, became the focus of a full digital manhunt. But the trail led to a public Wi-Fi hotspot near her building, meaning the killer could have been blocks away, or watching her from across the street. While digital experts pursued that lead, investigators circled back to her close contacts. Friends, ex-boyfriends, neighbors. One person stood out, a former friend she had recently blocked. He had once been part of her online dream community. They'd spoken frequently about lucid dreaming, symbolism, and nightmares. But in the past year, something had shifted. She told another friend he had become obsessed, not romantically but intellectually. He believed dreams had patterns, could be decoded, that they could predict death. His online alias? Dream Miner. His real name was redacted from public records, but investigators learned he'd been disciplined at his university for stalking behavior after becoming fixated on a classmate's creative writing blog. He'd shown up at her dorm late at night, just to talk about the symbolism, he'd said. Although no hard evidence tied him to her murder, he had been online, active, and commenting in the same dark forum under a different handle. When brought in for questioning, he didn't deny knowing her. In fact, he spoke of her with a kind of reverence. He said she was tapped into something bigger, that her dreams were messages waiting to be fulfilled. He denied any involvement in her death, but his words left a stain. As the investigation deepened, a final twist emerged, buried in her social media drafts folder. It was a post she never published. Short, unfinished, but terrifying. "I had another dream. This time it's not about me. It's about someone watching me write the dream. He knows what comes next. And he's smiling." The timestamp? 4 hours before her death. That unsent post changed the tone of everything. It was no longer just a question of whether someone had read her dream and reenacted it. It was now possible she had sensed them, felt them pulling the strings, but was too afraid to speak out directly. She may have known, or suspected, who it was. And instead of naming them, she did what she always did. Turned the horror into a story, hoping someone would read between the lines. The draft was encrypted. Not a normal feature. She had used a secure note-taking app, something usually reserved for journalists or whistleblowers. Investigators believed she may have intended to come forward, to expose whoever had been harassing her, but ran out of time. The case remains technically unsolved. The suspect disappeared after initial questioning. No arrest. No confession. Just gaps, digital silence. But online, the legend of her final dream lives on. Her followers, now numbering in the millions, treat her posts like sacred warnings. A few have even claimed to dream of her, standing behind red curtains, whispering truths no one can quite remember after waking. Whether she foresaw her own death or simply fell victim to someone else's obsession, one thing is certain, her final dream didn't just predict the end. It became it. Ask ChatGPT.